So when I did the clipping path on the model, I clipped into the eyelash. I didn't want to spend the time to actually try to clip each eyelash. I just come back later and do that. So I'm going to show you a cool way to add that back in. So let's check it out. Zoom in a bit. I'm going to take the mask off, hold down Shift. So we can see the eyelash, it does have really good separation, and we could probably pull a channel, but you know, once again, we're having the same problems that we have with the hair edge. The light's coming through and kind of causing this to get really chunky in here. And there's actually a really cool way to just do this manually and get some nice eyelash detail. I've seen a lot of retouchers repair eyelashes or add more eyelashes using what they call an eyelash brush, which is basically just a brush that's like a stamp of an entire eyelash. Yeah, you can do that. It seems to work, but this method seems much more high quality to me, and you have way more control. So it's just using a regular brush, but set to taper. And I'll show you how to make this really quick. I'm going to bring up a new layer. Go to my brush. I'm going to set it to the hard round pressure size. Make it small. Make your brush black. And do the same thing, just do a couple swipes, see if you can get something that looks like the right width. Now, in determining the width, you know, these might look like individual lashes because they're kind of clumped, but the lash width is much narrower than that, and these are just sort of clumps of small lashes, so we want to make sure that we're getting something that's the right size. Remember, it's easy to make, relatively easy to make whatever lines you create, whether it's for hair or eyelashes, bigger by doubling them up, but making them smaller is kind of tricky. So you want to start out, err on the side of smaller. I'm also going to show you another method for sort of visualizing how to trim out hair and or eyelashes. Bring up a new layer. I usually choose a pretty high saturation color and just fill the silhouette completely. So that way this is helpful with very complex hair, but it takes your eyes off the subject and you're able to look at just working on the shape. I just want you to be familiar with this concept because, you know, key guides for hair is something that's really useful for building out very complex hair painted masks. I'm going to rotate this so it's in a position that's good for me to make brush strokes. There's the stroke. So there's a really cool size control in shape dynamics of your brush settings called fade. And you see this value here. This value here tells the brush how long to paint until it fades out. So I'm going to set it to 100. And you'll see here, you get a little preview of what that looks like. And that's what it does. Sort of looks like an eyelash, right? Set it a little bit longer, 125. And I can turn the smoothing up a bit. That way I can paint slower. I think the brush needs to be one bigger. I'm going to do 200. You just have to mess with this value until you get it. So check that out. Pretty cool. So that's neat. It controls the tapering off for you. And so when we get to this point where I've got some shorter eyelashes, this is the only downside. You have to change this value every time. This is another one where you might want to hit caps lock so you can see your cursor a little bit better. You might even find situations where you can apply this to painting flyaways. But so you see what I mean, in contrast to using one of those prepackaged eyelash brushes, this is a completely custom edge. So if you don't want your, eyelashes on all your models to look the same, you can just paint it using this. It's really easy. It requires very little control. Let's commit this to the mask. Looks really pretty nice. I'm going to turn off the high. You can see that there's some garbage on the high because of the light shining through. I'm going to switch to my regular brush. New layer. Sample some of this color. Paint those guys in. Turn the high back on. Just getting rid of some of the light garbage that's in there. I'm going to go back to that hard pressure size, turn back on the fade. Go up to 100 because I want to add a little bit more detail into the eyelashes. Because it's a little bit blurry now. Right, let's put that up higher. Maybe 60% opacity with black. And maybe a couple little highlight. I'll do even lower opacity for that. And smudge those. Just a touch where they connect. Actually, I'm going to take what I just painted and see If I can just add a little bit of grain to that layer. That may not have been strong enough. I'm going to try the traditional method. Shift F5 to fill with gray. Set it to overlay, noise, add noise. Let's bring that down to 4. Now the nice thing about doing the noise this way is that I can now scale that up if I want to make the noise bigger. I'm going to add a mask. Paint that in. Just adds a little bit of texture in there, which is kind of nice. And then I'm going to burn. A little bit to just shorten and tighten up the eyelashes. Now if you want to darken them any more, you can go in there with the brush and add a little bit more. Now I spent a good amount of time on those eyelashes, but those are super custom eyelashes. Now you know how to do that. You can use that for a lot of different applications using the fade taper. If you make that brush and you find yourself using it, you should save it off into your brushes palette so you have it for later use. So now we've got this really cool image with the background knocked out, which is something we have to do all the time. And we achieved exactly what we were focused on with this image, which is to preserve that really nice, beautiful, natural edge and not be trapped by what's in the image in the first place, which a lot of retouchers you're going to find will do that. And now you have the tools to create your own edge. You don't have to worry about what's already there. Now you can say yes to that client request when they say, I really want a better edge, rather than, well, all I have is what's in the photograph. So you are now able to provide that level of quality. I'm pretty happy with this image, so let's move on to the next one.